Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of our C podcast. And today we have one of our experts, that's Aparajitha. So, hi, Aparajitha. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. And yeah, thanks for you to also join us. I think it's really amazing that there are lots of specialists actually joining us, trying to spread the awareness, and that's kind of really amazing. And thanks for you again. So, Aparajitha, we'll just start by getting yourself introduced to our audience. So, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello everyone. I'm Aparajitha Venkateswaran. I have done my psychology majors, masters in clinical psychology, and I'm practicing as a psychologist and a soft skills trainer. So currently, I have been working with a lot of children, teenagers, young adults, as well as their parents and grandparents. So
Okay.
there's a huge variety of age group that I'm working with currently. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a year and a half since I've been working as psychologist. There have been a lot of ups and downs in the journey, but it has been quite fulfilling me joining this field. So yeah, I was very excited to come here to Project C, and it's amazing that youngsters are coming up with such a good platform to spread an important message about mental health to the public. So kudos to that.
Right. Thank you, Pratita, again. I'm just very curious. When we talk about psychology, psychologists basically or counselors, let's say, they cater to a very wide. I mean, they have a narrow audience. I mean, they cater to a narrow audience. But as you have mentioned, you're working with kids, and then you're working with adults as well as ages such as grandparents or something like that. So how has this become with you? I mean, how did you come up with this wide, plethora of different age groups?
So the place I work with is a child and adolescent psychiatric clinic. So I work
Mm-hmm.
alongside a psychiatrist. I used to,
All
so
right.
now I'm in
Mm-hmm.
transition phase. So what
Okay.
happens is majorly the parents bring in the children over there. But
Okay.
what happens is, and what I have identified is, more than the children, what is necessary is that I counsel the parents on various aspects that's going,
Right. Mm-hmm.
where they are facing issues, but they feel that there's something wrong with the child. But when we are talking about a family right now, things have changed from before, right? So it was like a
Right, right.
joint family before. Right now
Mm-hmm.
it's nuclear family,
Right.
but there are families who are still in joint, who living in joint families. So they have their
Mm-hmm.
grandparents, they have their uncles and aunts staying. So there's a whole fine family dynamic coming together. So I
Right.
just don't have to cater to one person in that family, but also the others, because we
Right.
have to look at other perspectives also, right? So that's how I came across this thing. And not only I'm catering to only the child population, but also to a variety. So that has given me a lot of enriching ideas and experience and exposure when I say that I'm working with all the age group right now.
Right, right. And if I ask you, what are the biggest takeaways, or let's say, you have been first working with kids, and then slowly you have started understanding the other perspectives, as in the parents, or let's say their grandparents as well. So, what have you learned? I mean, what did you get from this kind of perspective learning, or let's say imbibing from this kind of perspective? What did you imbibe from them?
Great question. So when we were in our masters, we were introduced, even in our bachelors, we were introduced to
Mm-hmm.
DSM. Right? So that's the criteria that we follow for, say, diagnosis or anything. But when
Mm-hmm.
I started my practice, I understood that the people are beyond these labels. Right? The labels is given. Of course, there have been many more psychiatric, say, illnesses, and then we'll have to give a diagnosis per se. But
Right,
people are more than the labels, right? So
right,
there have
right,
been a lot of instances where I have refrained myself from giving a label in the first place, because what happens is that I then go by that particular framework कि नहीं यहाँ पे depression के symptoms लग रहे तो शायद depression होगा, but it's not so. Right now
right,
I have learned to think beyond the labels. So that
right.
is one real takeaway, and especially when you're dealing with kids, it becomes very sensitive, right? They are very, very little. So I have been counseling a 4 year old. Can you imagine a 4 year old? But
Mm-hmm.
that is because of, say, family dynamics and
Right,
dysfunctional families. So,
right, right,
but this is my biggest takeaway, that people are beyond these labels. And I have
right.
learned, thankfully, I have learned to look beyond that, and it has been a wonderful experience.
Right, right. And I think that's why I can connect why you chose the topic emotional intelligence, because you have this wider perspective, I'm sure. which enables you to look beyond a label, or let's say beyond a diagnosis, and try to improve your clients as such. I don't know if that's the word. Can I use the word client?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that will definitely give you a edge, of course, while counseling them as well. So I'm very curious actually. I mean, I know what is emotional intelligence kind of, but I require someone specialized such as you to explain me more about it, and the audience as well. So I just want you to first describe, let us know what emotional intelligence is, and why exactly did you choose that topic to be presented here with us.
So, emotional intelligence is one of my favorite topics, and it is again a topic that caters to all the audience, all the people I
All
have
right.
worked with, and not even worked with. So, if we talk about emotional intelligence, we have to understand the basic concept of emotions first before we go on to emotional intelligence, right?
Right.
So, I have asked a lot of people whom I've met, and even the clients, are you emotional? So sometimes it's sort of like a rhetoric questions, but sometimes people do answer, yeah, I am emotional. The second question I ask is, are you intelligent? So when we talk about something like intelligence, it's a very wide topic, right? So intelligence cannot be marked by one single thing that we know as IQ. Okay, there are like wide range of, that's what is known as intelligence. But the third question I ask is, are you emotionally intelligent? And that's where people are like struck for a bit, like what is emotional intelligence, ऐसा कुछ होता भी है क्या? So very few people know the exact sense about what emotional intelligence is. And even if people know what emotional intelligence is, there is some sort of a block that stops them from applying in their real life,
Right.
right?
Right.
So emotions, when we talk about emotions, they are the mental states or feeling states.
Right.
And there are three ways how we understand that we are feeling some emotion or we are having some emotions. One is the physiological domain, right? That is the physiological reaction that we have, which makes us understand that yes, I am having an emotional state. Second is a cognitive reaction. That is any thought that comes up when we are feeling that I am having this feeling in me, or I am sad, or I'm happy, and the cognitive process that is related to the thought that is related to
The
it.
realization.
The third part is the behavioral reaction. That is whenever we are having a mental state in terms of an emotion, what sort of a behavioral reaction we are having. So I'll give you a
Right.
simple example. Um, Take the example of anger. For
Mhm.
example, if you're taking anger, the cognitive reaction would be I am angry, and my thoughts will be in a more negative sense, more destructive sense.
Right.
Right? I have to do this, and why did this happen to me? So I will prove myself, and that sort of could go in a negative direction.
Perfect.
That's your cognitive reaction. The physiological reaction would be you would be sweaty, or you would be trembling, or you would want to punch something, right?
Right.
That would be your physiological reaction. The third reaction would be your behavioral reaction. So that is you want to go somewhere and you want to, for example, of punching the bag or punching the pillow, or you want to break something. That
Or
could
yell
be
at
your,
someone.
or you want to yell at someone.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. So that's your behavioral response, reaction, sorry. So emotions are wide variety, and people get scared of emotions,
Right.
right? Has there been any situation where you felt ki nahi, nahi, I don't have to go through this emotion right now, I can't deal with this emotion right now? It happens, right? To a
Right.
lot of us it has happened
Right.
ki sometimes when I am feeling sad or anger, I would say I don't want to deal with that right now, and then I would sort of suppress it or ignore it and then just go ahead with whatever I'm doing. But is it helping us in that time?
Right. Right.
Might be not, right? Sometimes it
Right.
might not help us.
Yeah.
So the question comes over here when we react. So when we have a behavioral reaction, we become emotional hostages. So what happens over there is the emotions take control over us, and the way we want to actually respond to the situation, we are not able to rationally. So what
Right.
happens is the quick reaction that happens. That's why it's the behavioral reaction, physiological reaction, and the cognitive reaction. what sets this thing apart to a response is emotional intelligence. And that is something that helps us undo the emotional hostages that we become when the emotions or the they start controlling us,
Right,
right?
right, right,
So emotional intelligence is the whole understanding of your own self, your emotions, and how you take it in consideration to have a healthy, positive relationship with your own self and others. So, this is basically the crux of what emotional intelligence is all about.
right, right, right. And Aprajita, you have mentioned, of course, I understood what you have just spoken about in emotional intelligence. But at the same time, you have also mentioned that sometimes people, they do not know how exactly to use this emotional intelligence. And I think to use this, there has to be a certain kind of knowledge within us, or at least a practical approach towards it. So, how do you think can we use it in our daily lives? I mean, how exactly can someone like me use it in our daily lives? How do we use that?
Right. So I'll just take you back to a little bit of theory behind it, and then I'll
Hmm.
come to the practical experience of how we
Right,
can explain, like sort of like use those theory. So
right.
there was this psychologist, Dr. Daniel Goleman. So he gave certain competencies related to emotional intelligence, namely self-awareness. So what consists of self-awareness is how well you know your own self. So when you know your own self in terms of your actions, your behaviors, your thoughts, you can sort of know कि in this particular situation मैं ऐसा behave कर सकता हूँ या कर सकती हूँ. So you
Hmm.
sort of know it. But I understand that there's always a first time. But when it becomes a pattern, that is where self-awareness can help you out. So self awareness about your own emotions. फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू नो कि इस सिचुएशन में मेरा रिएक्शन इस तरीके से होता है. I am not
Hmm.
able to control myself in a situation like this. For example, I've got less marks, not according to what I had actually thought of. कि मुझे इतना marks मिल सकता है, but I haven't received that much. What's the reaction that is happening? Frustration or self doubt or anger. A variety of emotions can come in. For some, it could be sadness, but the behavioral action that is coming post that can be varied in terms of you throw something or you don't feel good about it and you think that I can't take this test again and you start
Right,
hating the subject. So there are
right,
variety of reasons behind that. But now you know this pattern कि whenever I have a less mark in a particular subject, I tend to behave in a certain way. So these are all reactions. And now what we have to convert it to response. And how will we do that? Right? And that is something I will discuss post I explain the competencies. The first one was
right,
self
right,
awareness. Right?
right,
The
right.
second one is emotional self management.
Mhm.
Now, emotional self management may seem like a big term, but in short and in simple words, it is nothing but how you know कि this is a particular emotion that I am having, and now I have to harness it in a way that I get positive results.
Right,
So, anger is also good. Sadness is also good. Happiness is also good. So basically, all emotions are welcome. There is a reason why we have all these emotions in us,
right,
right?
right,
ऐसा
right,
नहीं है ना कि this is a good emotion, this is a bad emotion.
right,
But this labeling has occurred. And that is why people fear a lot from sadness, anger, frustration. Right?
right,
So I have myself heard parents who come to me say कि बच्चा sad हो जाता है तो हमको डर लगने लगता है. So they directly associate sadness with depression, which is
right,
not the case. Sadness is an emotion,
right,
right? So they get scared कि अरे बच्चा sad हो गया अब क्या होगा. So they don't know how to handle all these emotions, especially the
correct,
negative
correct,
emotions,
correct,
right? So emotional regulation will help you to understand and regulate these emotions in a way that you won't label them as good or bad, and you will
right,
let all these emotions come to you and you can have a comfortable time even dealing with them or regulating with them. The third things come is the empathy. Empathy is extremely important. Empathy is nothing but you understand what the other person is feeling, like basically
right,
being in their shoes and understanding how they are feeling at that moment and how it was for them to go through that particular situation.
Right.
This does not happen at a lot of cases. Now take the example of a corporate situation. There's a manager, there is a person, a junior manager, for example, right? Or the person who is working under them. Now the manager will say, तुम ये कर लेना, तुम वो कर लेना. इतने सारे deadlines दे देंगे. And that person is getting worked up. The junior manager is getting worked up. How am I going to finish all these deadlines?
Right.
And that creates sort of anxiety in them, frustration in them, and they sort of don't properly put out what they are meant for. मतलब उनका जो भी क्या कहते हैं उसको कि the limit or the ability that they can actually put in the work, they're not able to because of this stagnation.
Right.
But if you have a manager who is emotionally intelligent, meaning who is showing empathy, that I understand that you have these deadlines. Now, where do you think I can help you out, or where do you think we can cut down and prioritize?
Right.
This is the nature of a good manager who is emotionally intelligent. So a lot of us don't harness empathy, and empathy is something that can be taught from a very, very young age, right? So the next part, the final part, is the social awareness. Social awareness comes through being having a positive relationship with people, and positive relationship with people can only come when you yourself have a good relationship with yourself. Who are we kidding over here? Can we actually have good relationship with someone else if you don't respect your own self or understand your own self? Wouldn't it be faking?
Correct.
Right? So all these things together form the competencies of emotional intelligence. Right. So now you asked, how can a layman sort of like go through emotional intelligence or develop emotional intelligence?
Right.
The first thing, so this is something that I have practiced myself, and it has been pretty good for me, but it can differ from person to person. So I follow this technique known as the traffic signal technique. Traffic signal में सबसे पहले क्या आता है? The red light. Right? It tells you to stop. So that means we have to pause with our emotions. We stop.
Right.
So for example, we'll take the same example of the marks. Now we have got less marks in a particular subject. The immediate reaction is, it can be anger for some, sadness for some, crying, or irritated, or giving up feeling for some. Right. So we immediately jump to a conclusion over there that I am a failure, or I am not worth this, and I cannot do anything in my life. So before all these things happen, we have to pause. We have to stop there. We got the marks. We can feel the emotions. So the first thing we have to do is identify what is the feeling inside us. What's the emotion we are feeling, instead of labeling. So we keep on tagging ourselves at that particular time. You just can't do anything. You've been failing so much. So instead of that, we pause and reflect back on how we are feeling. What's the major emotion that we are having that time? So after we do that, we understand that yes, this is the emotion that is making me behave in a certain way. Right. It's not what I have decided for myself.
Correct, of course.
Probably in a neutral situation, what would you want?
I would have reacted in a different way, of course.
Yeah. So over here, we are shifting that entire narrative from a reaction to a response. So emotional intelligence is about how you stop reacting and start responding. So you have this feeling, right? You want to be understood by other people. There's this thing, right? सबको तो मुझे समझना चाहिए. But that can only happen when you start understanding your own self and others. And that happens when you pause and reflect on that emotion. That's your red light. You stop. Next comes the yellow light. That is, you move slowly, or you pause for a certain period of time because you're getting ready to move. So to respond, what you do is you prepare yourself. You take back on the questioning in terms of, what is it that I can do right now? That's the question you ask when you're in the yellow zone, when the yellow light. Right? Yeah. So when you ask that question, automatically you're moving towards a solution-focused approach rather than a problem-focused approach.
Right.
So
Right.
earlier, when you are not following this technique or when you are not being emotionally intelligent, what is happening is directly you're jumping into a conclusion. Over here, you are taking time for that. You are ultimately going to come to a conclusion, but you are not doing it in a haste. You are taking time, you are understanding your own emotions and sort of like wading through it. You're not skipping these emotions.
All right.
So that's the yellow part. That's the yellow light that one goes through. The green light, that's the response part, that's the action part. Now you're waiting before you take an action. Pehle kya
Right.
hota tha, you take an action and then you are thinking about that action. So we
Right.
are reversing this entire thing. So you
Right.
stop, you slow down, and then you respond. And that's an action that will most time could be a solution focused approach. So ठीक है, now I have got less marks over here. What is in my control right now? Can I change the marks right now? No, I can't. But
Right.
what can I do for the future? I can probably take help of my friends, do a group study, my professors, do a little
Right.
bit more of homework. Or what are the things that went well in this exam? And what are the things that could have gone better? So,
Right.
likewise, you start identifying the things that have gone wrong also, and all the things that you have probably skipped. So,
Mm.
this gives you a time to reflect and come to an action that is sort of positive for you and healthy for you.
Right.
Now when you keep doing this thing, when you stop, when you keep practicing the traffic signal technique, what happens is that you form a pattern of healthy techniques, healthy positive actions, right? And then that makes a sort of like a life where you are being emotionally intelligent. You are giving time to your emotions, you are valuing your emotions rather than just shutting it off or just
Right.
reacting. Reaction is a fast track process which is not going to get you anywhere, right?
Right.
But when you respond, it is sort of helping you reflect back and come to a consensus that is positive for you and also others around.
Right.
So this is the way, this is something I have also gone through. So just the example I'll share what happened yesterday. So as you also know, my laptop was not working, right?
Right.
And the previous me would be like petrified and terrified and embarrassed of the situation. I would
Right.
be like, kya ho gaya ye? I had everything in my control. I got ready, I sat down, I had my notes ready, but the laptop was
Right.
not working. So I would have
Right.
gone mad. I would be running helter skelter and troubling people to come fix it. But
Right.
yesterday was not like that for me. I
Right. Of course.
understood technical glitch is out of my control.
Right.
So when something is there which is not in your control, ultimately your mind will go towards a solution. What I did was I tried my level best in terms of whatever I could do to fix it. Still, it
Right.
didn't happen. I rescheduled it because I know
Right.
I had the provision for that, right? So
Right.
I sat down with myself last evening and I was pondering over this act of mine in terms of how I was and how I am right now when I am faced with a conflict or an issue or an obstacle in front of me. So I felt proud about myself also and gave like a small pat on my back for that. So these are
Right.
the small things how you use emotional intelligence in your life.
Right, right, right. Uh, Prajita, as you have mentioned, let's say I have been, I mean, I'm a human being, and before knowing certain things or before accepting certain parts of me, or let's say before understanding or completely, taking care of one of my emotions, which is sort of, gives me a bad reaction, such as, let's say when I get sad, I just tend to push people around me. I just don't
Hmm.
let people come to me, and that's what I do. That's like one of the mechanisms that I use. Not I use, I'm just like an example. So
Yeah.
let's say I'm using that as a mechanism. I get sad and then I'm throwing out people and I don't want to talk to them or something like that. And it has happened to me in the past for like, let's say 10 to 15 times as of now. And when it happens I mean, when it happens this way for like 10 to 15 times, such in certain situations, I think that also becomes a sort of habit. And then I certainly train my mind that maybe whenever I'm sad, let's just push the people around, and maybe a couple of develop, let's say 1 hour 2 hours, and then I'm fine with it. So I think this is the mechanism that I have, or maybe let's say my mind has fixed that, okay, this is the kind of mechanism. Whenever I get sad, just throw away people, don't talk to them, keep yourself closed in a closet or something, or in your bedroom or something like that. So when I have this like a habit, how do you think that I can break through it, break out through this kind of toxic habit that I'm habituated to, and come out and use this emotional intelligence in my way, so that I can start having good relationships with people, because throwing away people doesn't work all the time, and it's really a bad thing. So how do you think that I can come out of this habit through using this or by using this?
Right. So, since you have given this example, I'm just referring to you that you are having
Right,
this. For example,
right,
like you
right.
mentioned. Okay. So, first of all, it's great that you are having that awareness that this has been a pattern that you've been
Right,
following.
right.
That's the first step that you have already taken. And having that awareness, like I mentioned, the first competencies of self awareness, that's the most important and the most difficult part.
Mhm.
So when you don't understand or don't even identify what is going on with you or the pattern you're following, then you can't move ahead. But you've already done that. So that's the major and the big step that you've already taken. So kudos to you for that. So once a person has done that,
Mhm.
we sort of like put a pattern in terms of what are the various situations that this particular pattern repeats. For example, you mentioned sad, but being sad is again a generic
Right,
attribute. So
right, of
when
course.
we sort of like discuss what are the situations, specific situations that make you sad and that makes you push people away. So it could have happened that the first time, initial times when you had tried it, it worked out for you and you felt better by pushing
Right,
people.
right.
So that sort of like stuck in your mind कि if I push people away कि मैं अच्छा feel कर सकता हूँ for the time being. But again, that's for the time being. You are technically not addressing the
Problem.
elephant in the room,
Right.
right? You're not actually looking at the problem over there. So what happens is again over here, since the problem is not identified, the problem is sort of identified, but you're not knowing how to go through it or wade through it or come out with a solution. The best thing you could do is push away people, right? So you could get sort of some sort of solace in that particular situation. But now you are at a place where you have done it multiple times and you have understood that nay, most of the time this is not helping me out. So the best thing is you start forming new patterns. I know it could be daunting, it could be little difficult, but the best part is to take the first step. So when you take the first step, it becomes easier to take the second step because we are not looking at the 10th step right now. We are not looking at saying कि हमने सारे emotions पे control कर लिया because you cannot control emotions. You can just regulate them. So the first part is you understood and you have identified the pattern. Next is you stop and you pause, right? Coming through the traffic signal technique. You pause out and you see कहाँ कहाँ पे मुझे ऐसे emotions feel होते हैं. And what is the problem that I am running away from or something that I am not wanting to talk about or even like think about. So that could be little difficult, but with a person who can help you out, you can definitely do that and go through these
Mhm.
difficult emotions, right?
Right.
And post that, you can identify ki how I am wanting to change these emotions. So if I am sad, how do I want to tackle emotions, tackle this sadness? या फिर मैं क्या करना चाहता हूँ कि मैं better feel कर सकूँ, which is healthy for me also, so that I can have a positive relationship with myself and others. So emotional intelligence is not just about self; it's about
Right,
others also.
right, right,
How you're
right,
forming a positive relation with others. So over here, what is happening is you are not having a positive relationship with your own self and with others. So to
right,
change that, you wait and you pause and you note down these patterns that happens recurrently, right?
right.
And then slowly you can start by changing each situation. Okay, you consciously make that effort in terms of right now I am not going to push people away, but find out some other solution.
Right, right,
Right now we know only one solution which is not helping us,
right.
so we have to make this conscious decision in terms of what else can I do so that I can feel better and I can let people also be the way they are and not hurt them also.
Right, right. No,
So
the
likewise,
reason why, yeah, so the reason why I've asked is, nowadays, you might know that people are forming patterns. People are, first things first, they are getting influenced. whenever they see something, let's say there are lots of visuals that goes around in our lives, and let's say I've seen something, I see someone, a hero, let's say I'm seeing a movie, and then I see that something has happened to the hero. Let's say he has got heartbroken, and then he starts drinking, and people get influenced out of it, and they think that, okay, maybe this is my escape to the pain that I'm suffering right now, or something like that. And people are actually forming different patterns. Let's say eating is also one of the problems. Drinking could be one, eating, overeating, or let's say that's when it also affects your mental health, I mean your
Emotionally.
physical health and
Right.
mental health as well. So I think people are actually forming the patterns, they are finding out the escapes, which is not very healthy. I mean, the escapes they are finding is not very healthy. They might get addicted as well, addiction to alcohol, or sometimes even drugs. That is also something that's happening when people are actually forming these kind of escapes, that shortcuts that they are taking, irrespective of, without actually regarding the problem, they're actually taking the shortcuts. So I just wanted to understand how exactly can we break this pattern. I mean, I've understood that, thinking about it, and, you just taking yourself a time out, and, realizing the situations, and then understanding what you could do other, I mean, instead of doing this, what could you do, or, how can you exactly respond instead of reacting. But how do you think can we break these kind of patterns? Because it really gets tougher when someone is addicted to something, when someone starts overeating, when someone starts, just crying and crying for hours together in the room, without actually understanding how to actually respond. So how do you think we can break this pattern by using emotional intelligence? Because as you have mentioned, emotional intelligence is not just about us; it's about people as well. Having that positive communication, or let's say relationship. The examples that I've given with the manager as well, things could have changed if the manager and the person, they have
Yeah.
better, if they have a positive relationship. So how do you think we can break this pattern and have this and establish these kind of positive relationship with people and with the
Right.
environment?
Mhm. So, Devashish, what happens is right now we are in a state, or say in a situation where social media has taken over each of our lives,
Right,
right?
right,
Multiple times we see ourselves just scrolling through it without mindlessly, we are scrolling without any purpose behind that, right?
right,
So, what happens is our visual narrative has strengthened. So, what happens is when we see a particular post or a story, that sort of sticks to our mind. Now, you had given an example of a movie. Movie is a very, very strong narrative that reaches a large medium of people, right?
right,
So what happens is they see these actors as their role models. A lot of
right,
people
right,
do
right,
see
right. I think
them
that's
as
the problem.
celebrities. That is a major problem. So they are not able to dissociate the person from their job. They are actors. At the end
Right,
of the day, they are
right,
doing a
right,
job,
right. Of
right?
course.
So
Right,
this is a demarcation that all of us also have to spread through our own medium of awareness that we are trying to spread,
mm,
right? So again, this happens, the escape happens from the real emotion is because of tagging. We have tagged few emotions as negative and some as positive. So
right,
one feels very dejected and scared when they are having or feeling a certain emotion, for example sadness or anger. They feel that I should not be feeling this, I
right,
should not be having these feelings. I should
right.
be able to come out of it immediately.
Immediately.
It's
Right,
not
right,
like
right,
that.
right,
It's
right,
not like that.
right,
All the emotions are welcomed and all the emotions are there in us for a particular reason.
right,
So, to start with, we have to accept this fact. It is literally a fact that all emotions are something that is in us and it will come to us at certain moments. I cannot be happy all the time. I cannot be sad all the time. Right? And that's why emotional intelligence helps you to come to a neutral phase. You understand that when you are sad. So when you are sad or when you're extremely happy or extremely sad, you don't take decisions.
right,
I'm telling, even when you are very happy, you don't take a decision.
right,
So, emotional intelligence is something that will help you to stabilize and come to a neutral position after going through a process of understanding your own emotions. Right? So,
right,
over there, then what happens is that thought process changes. Right now, in the previous question, I did mention the pattern is formed. So, it will take
right,
some time to form new patterns.
right,
Likewise, the brain patterns will also change and it will take time. So, when
right,
that happens, automatically the way you're viewing something will change. So, when you view, say, alcohol as a dependent for a breakup, for example, right? So that narrative will change when you see that yes, breakup is something that will have sadness post that. People
Yeah.
can have
And it's
anger
natural.
post that.
Right.
It's natural. But
Right.
when you start tagging it as unnatural or tagging it as something that is not required and which is bad, obviously you are going to view it as something negative, and then you form the negative patterns. So the first step, and something that I strongly believe, is having an open mind and open perspective in terms of including all the emotions as your own emotion, to be very precise in that way. So when
Yeah.
you know that all these emotions are welcome and they are going to come, slowly and steadily this change will happen.
Right, right. And that's really wonderful of you mentioning that people out there acting on the television or in the big screens, they are actors at the end of the day. And uh, taking that, I mean, that's for entertainment. I don't understand why people still rely on their actions, and they celebrate it, or look up to them. I mean, that character. I'm not talking about the person, but they look up to
Yes.
the character
Yeah.
and they
Right.
think this is
True.
right and that is wrong. I think that's very mature of you, that we understand that we have to demarcate that at the end of the day they are the actors, and they were acting a particular character. And I think that is the whole problem. Problem is it's just our inability to understand that it's an actor playing a certain role, and
Right.
that role
But more
shouldn't be our.
than inability, right? Sorry to stop you over
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's
please,
not
please.
our inability, but it's the lack of awareness, I would say.
Right, right, right,
Ability will develop when we know that this is right and this is wrong. But the
right,
entire concept is going in a haywire direction where we don't know what
right,
is good or what is bad. Everything is going
right,
in the bad direction. And we are labeling every emotion as bad. So
right.
that's where the issue starts.
Right. Exactly. Well, Aprajita, thanks a lot. I mean, it has been a wonderful episode. And before we leave, I just want to understand what are your hobbies? I mean, other than counseling, in your general life, of course, you have a life of yours. So tell me, what are your hobbies?
So I'm a very good cook. So I am assuming I'm a very good cook. So I love to
Okay.
cook, and I'm a trained Bharatnatyam dancer. So I've been
Oh,
learning Bharatnatyam for 20-22 years now. So dance has always been a go-to thing for me whenever I am feeling under the weather or I'm not feeling very good. I like to sing, though I'm not a very good singer. I just love to sing. That's just my pastime. And yeah, something like that. And I'm a very good volleyball player. I love to play
right.
sports. So I've always been a very creative person, not into too much of book reading and all, but yes, this.
All right. Well, Aparajita, thanks a lot for being in our episode, and I just love the conversation that you really. I mean, I'm really honestly, I just really love the conversation that we had, and I think the biggest takeaways for me would be, in terms of understanding the competences, understanding that being self-aware of ourselves is the biggest attribute that one can achieve in their human life, because that is when you can respect others. Without respecting yourself, without understanding yourself, I don't think we can try to even understand others, or at least try to respect others, or the povs, I mean, the point of views that others have or we have. I think that would be my biggest takeaways. And yeah, thanks for having us. I mean, thanks for
Thank you so
accepting our
much. Thank you
invitation.
so much. It's all
Right.
my pleasure, and I had a wonderful time coming over here. And I would just wish you all the very best for your future projects. And you guys are doing a wonderful job. Hope you take it ahead and people, like you spread awareness regarding mental health to a lot of people out there in social media. So yes, and thank you so much for having me here. I had a wonderful time.
Right, and I think this episode definitely has a part two. There are still many questions that are remain, and maybe we can have another session again, and we
Definitely.
can release a part two as well. Thanks a lot, Aparajita, and yeah, hope what all you have told or preached, I'm sure people will listen to you. Of course, they will, and learn certain things, and I think that's the goal, right?
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
thanks again. Thanks. Bye. I'll stop the
Have,
recording here.
yes, sure.
All right. Thank you.